Welcome back to the Liberator podcast. I'm Sam Riley. This is James Silverman, and this is Russell Hunter. This is episode 13 of the Liberator podcast, and we have some big news to talk about today. Yep. Big national news. It's a big election.
It's going to be a great episode because it's a huge election, and we get to cover the results of it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we've got a big decisive victory.
Yep. Earth-shattering, world-changing.
Warren Hamilton, John Jacob, two abolitionist candidates who ran solid campaigns, above-board campaigns, running on a platform to abolish abortion in their states, won handily, hands down, defeated their Democratic challengers. And, we just praise God for that and just want to talk about what those campaigns have shown, what we've learned from those elections, and where we go from there. So, massive political victories for the abolitionist movement yesterday.
Yeah,
so,
big deal.
All right, so let's talk about Warren Hamilton first. Warren Hamilton is in the state of Oklahoma. We've talked about him on the show many times, and people who followed Free the States certainly would be, we're hoping that many of you have contributed to his campaign in some way and, been liking and sharing his material, paying attention to what he's been doing. But of course, that's here in Oklahoma. We haven't been, running his campaign or doing anything like that, but we've been rooting for him quite a bit. So let's talk about Warren Hamilton first, and then let's talk about John Jacob. And let's focus primarily, yes, they won. We've got the numbers, but let's focus primarily on like what their winning means and where we go from there. Mm-hmm. So to begin with, just to get the facts, Warren Hamilton faced off against Democrat challenger
Jerry
Donathan. And what were the vote totals? You got them? You got them up there in your knob?
Yep, 72.17 to 27.83.
So this is huge.
Slaughter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolute slaughter. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if people were sitting around thinking, I don't know if Hamilton can win. I mean, he's run as an abolitionist. He's associated with people like Free the States and the Ecclesia. Like, this guy's we're probably going to lose the seat to the Democrats.
I know for certain there were people thinking exactly that.
Yeah, people thinking that and saying that. Yeah. And then whenever
establishment Republicans believed that, the Democrats believed that. They believe that you can't win as an abolitionist. That is
super politically elite, wise people.
Yep, that's what they thought.
And of course, you could say, well, no, this is sort of just it's just a really Republican area. You like that this doesn't really say anything. It's just a really Republican area. But the last time around, what were the numbers in that same Senate district when Boggs had to beat the Democrat?
So Boggs only won with 57.75% of the vote. Yeah. So Boggs, the previous incumbent Republican, pro-lifer, not an abolitionist, he gets 57.75. Warren Hamilton gets 72.17.
Yeah.
More than 16 points better than the establishment pro-life moderate Republican who is supposedly the electable candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, the primary and the amount of money that was spent on it, he got rid of these mushy, ridiculous Republicans that aren't doing anything because people of Oklahoma actually want someone who's going to go in and fight. They don't want somebody who's just going to continue with these policies that have prolonged the slaughter. They don't want that. And the fact that so many people think the ultra-conservative thing to do in these ultra-conservative places is to just minimize how strongly anti-abortion you are is stupid.
Yeah, this should be instructive to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that they would be watching this show, but I hope that whoever is watching this show will begin to repeat that and sort of change the sentiment out there among the people who know. Because, yes, it is true. And it's not like speculative. We know for a fact, like Holly Gerard, for instance. Holly Gerard, and we're not going to bash her at all. I mean, I've met her once or twice. She's a nice lady. She's a professing Christian. She's been very active in the political world in Oklahoma and the kind of consultant that sort of conservative Republican candidates want on their team. And Holly Gerard, actually, she backed Larry Boggs.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and gave reasons for why she was backing Larry Boggs.
Right. She believed that Larry Boggs was the only candidate who could win the general election in Senate District 7. That's the reason she gave.
Yeah.
Because abolitionists were like, what the heck? You're supposed to be like the conservative. You're not supposed to be like the moderate, mushy middle Politico. You're supposed to be the conservative one, and you're going with the moderate guy.
Yeah.
And she says, well, abolitionists can't win.
Yeah, and Holly has actually been this way for a long time. The first time I met Holly was whenever I was on the Dan Fisher campaign, and it was actually in the early exploratory days. And, we were kind of saying, okay, well, we need a campaign manager who really knows what they're doing. And Holly was in the room being vetted for that position, and we were reaching out to her. Yeah, and it was basically like, no, a political candidate cannot win on this abolish abortion as murder platform. Like, it can't be anyone who wants to do this. And she would even say things like, listen, I actually agree with you. Like, abortion's murder. It should be abolished, but it can't win. And in this instance, it's kind of like, well, literally, like, I actually agree with Hamilton's views more than Boggs. I am a conservative. I am an evangelical Christian. That's more Hamilton than Boggs. But I think that Hamilton can't beat the Democrat, and I'm more committed to beating Democrats than standing on the principles of, I said I was going to be, that seems a little mean, but that's basically what she said. I'm more committed to beating that Democrat than anything else, so I'm going to side with Boggs and help Boggs.
And think about what that does to the consistent biblical Christian who wants to vote for someone who actually is going to champion what they want. Like, psychologically, that's got to be so like, man, maybe there is no one else out there that actually thinks what I think. If my beliefs are so incredibly unpopular and terrible that no one is willing to present them.
Yeah. So I might as well just stand up for something less.
Yeah.
And that's how we get into the situation that we're in. I mean, there was another big election yesterday and today, and that'll be going on for however long. But
what election's that?
Oh, and we're filming this on Wednesday. Just so you all know,
yes, this is Wednesday.
We'll post it on Thursday.
We'll post it on Thursday. There's an election going on for the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America.
Oh.
Yes.
So there was another election.
I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
It's not really important for the abolitionist cause. Roe v. Wade's not on the ballot. There's nothing. It's not like we had the opportunity to vote for somebody who was going to say states ought to criminalize abortion within their borders or anything like that. So it's kind of a negligible thing for Free the States, state sovereignty, abolitionist organization. But you look at something like that, and people always wonder why some of these third-party candidates or, lesser known, maybe more Christian candidates can't get any votes. And it's because people are thinking that way. They're thinking, well, I know that the candidate that I'm going to vote for isn't anything really like me and doesn't really stand up for the principles that I want and isn't really going to do what I want them to do, but I think they have a better chance at beating the other guy.
And that philosophy, it's forwarded under this, we have to be pragmatic. And in the end, there's not a single thing pragmatic about it.
Yeah.
Right? Warren Hamilton outperformed Boggs in the general election by more than 16 points.
Yeah. Defining pragmatism as what works.
Right.
So the person who says, I'm not going to vote for Warren Hamilton because it doesn't work, was wrong.
Well, the other layer to that, too, I think is the same thing that happens with Supreme Court picks when they do the tactic of, or when people say they're doing the tactic of not being out and out anti-Roe and not making that clear to people. And so, like, when you're going about the process of getting someone elected, you don't know whether they're any good or not, whether they're going to go in there and just totally waste the time that they've been given, their God-given time, and whether they're going to be a steward of it because they didn't say anything strong enough to actually indicate to you that they're going to go in and fight.
Yeah, because they've been appealing to this. Everybody out there is like just trying to like be crafty and support somebody who may do something, but they're not saying something. And of course, that's not our perspective at all. I want that Supreme Court justice who's like being vetted to be sitting there on the bench being like, yes, abortion is murder, and it's never been constitutional. And heck yeah, I'm going to do everything in my power to, uphold the Declaration of Independence principle of the right to life. Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, they don't do that because they're in that mindset. Again, well, if I say that, I'm not going to win. They're trying to be pragmatic, but we are finding that the culture, and this is one of the things that people like about Donald Trump, I think, that the culture doesn't want someone up there saying something they think is going to sell, but saying what they actually believe.
Yeah.
And in Stigler and Wilburton and McAllister, people wanted to hear Hamilton say, we're going to abolish abortion.
And that is how, like, you start to sort of brainwash and change the way someone thinks and the way what they believe. You tell them they can't say a certain set of things, and then you say that they need to say another set of things that they don't believe in order to get elected. And over time, they start to conform to those things that they've been told they're allowed to say, and stop believing the things they've been told they're not allowed to say. So it's like that's the way that we're getting the political realities that we're dealing with right now, is that kind of suppression of what we were supposed to believe as Christians.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how you get a Republican Party that does nothing to legislate against abortion.
That's why you get someone like Greg Treat, who says that the reason he's getting into politics is to fight abortion.
Or Larry Boggs saying it's an abomination, and then
turning around and saying,
the pro-abort.
Vote for the pro-abort.
Yeah. He's saying it's an abomination to a bunch of people that have been telling him it's an abomination and we need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Like, now it's the political expedient thing to do, but I still believe probably what this pro-abort believes way more than what you guys believe.
Yeah, because I'm, he was just hurt or something. I don't know. There's something about this, like whenever we do this to people, we have to speak the truth and we have to say, this is what this person said or doing, and this is what we think they're doing. Mm-hmm. But there's some part of me that kind of like wants to be able to turn around and say, hey, it's okay, man. We believe in the gospel. Like, we believe in daily repentance. And hey, man, just say, listen, I thought I had to be pragmatic. Like, my political advisors told me I had to be pragmatic. Yep. Everyone told me that there is no path forward for total and immediate abolition, and that I got to be this sort of like undermining, inconsistent pro-life thing, and I can't be more radical. And then you lose, and then you just got to say, and I was wrong, and my advisors were wrong. Oklahoma's ready for this.
Yeah.
And then when they do that, we need to be like, yes, welcome. We all have once thought that, because I think it's what we're swimming in. Mm-hmm. I think everyone is just being brought up in this sort of be crafty, clever, and pragmatic, don't really trust in the providence of God or stand on principles. That's just the sludge. I mean, maybe the swamp isn't just in one little district of Columbia. It's just everywhere, and everyone's swimming in this pragmatic nonsense. And things like the Hamilton race and the Jacob race ought to prove, at least get you thinking, maybe that's not right.
Yeah. And especially when you're dealing with a bunch of people that are Christians in Oklahoma, you got a bunch of people that at least claim to be Christians.
Yes.
They don't need to hear the truth that many times in order for it to stick. Like, if they hear a good case for abolition, if they're really a Christian and they're looking at it, it's really easy for that to stick. But if you're hearing something that's inconsistent, that doesn't make all that much sense, you're not going to get excited about a candidate, and you're not going to probably show up to even vote for them, because they don't really matter all that much. They're not going to do anything different from Greg Treat and everyone else that's in the Senate. Yep. So you end up just not showing up, and that's what happens with guys like Boggs. Boggs getting such a way worse turnout on a Trump year too. So it's not just the fact that Trump's there. Trump was bringing out more of the vote for sure. But
there's nothing exciting about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's you want the guy who's like, I'm going to the Oklahoma City. I'm going to the Oklahoma State Capitol, and I'm going to stand up for justice and mercy and protect every preborn child.
Yeah.
Is different from, there's some people who've been fighting abortion for 40 years who say that I'm 100% pro-life. Vote for me. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, we've been hearing that for 45 years, and it really hasn't meant anything.
Yeah.
But so this is, I think we've said it, but we need to say it again for people who may be skeptical or they're a little bit negative about this, the prospects of everything that we're doing sort of with Free the States or just the abolitionist movement, that is changing, that's false. That's actually a lie. That idea that you got to be pro-life, you got to run as a pro-lifer, and if you don't, you're going to lose. That's false. That's just, we're proving that to be false. I actually think if someone runs and they refuse to even drop the A word, for instance, like they're like, well, I'm going to run, I'm against abortion, but because everyone who knows things is telling me not to use the A word because that'll associate me with like T. Russell Hunter or something like that, and like I'll lose. Like, well, this is an instruction to you.
Yeah.
they're lying to you.
And the Indiana one in particular is a great case study in that, because there were 4 abolitionists candidates who ran in Indiana. There were 4 candidates running on a platform of, I am going to support the bill of total and immediate abolition in Indiana. Now, 3 of those 4 went as pro-lifers. They used the pro-life label. They didn't say abolish abortion. They said like end abortion or something. Or they didn't use the A word. And the other 3 lost, and John Jacob won. Now, that's not to say that's the only reason. John Jacob may have been a stronger candidate in other ways, or he may have just been in an easier, more.
But when they're saying things like, "I'm not going to say the A word or put the A word on any of my websites or material because I think it'll cost me," there may have been other reasons that they lost, but the reason they thought that John Jacob was going to lose or hurt his campaign was that he had, I just remember looking at it, because you look at it and it's like, I love John Jacob. I met him. Yeah. He seems like a solid guy. I've met his wife. I've been out there. I've been a part of some conferences and stuff that he's been at. And I'm like, I love him. But then you always, Indiana's far away. And you're like, man, I hope that some of these sort of political people that know don't get around him and say, don't use the A-bomb. And I'm like, man, you got to drop that A-bomb because it clearly associates you with one side of the line and not the other, and it's very helpful. Yeah. And whenever I saw his little mailer or something and it said abolishing abortion, I'm like, yes, we can support him. But like those other 3 candidates,
and it's not to bash them in any way. They're really good guys. I know 2 of the 3. Yeah, really good guys.
And they were going to support the protection from conception or at conception bill, Kurt Knisley's bill, and that's good, but there's something, it gives you an indication about them. And so now I'm not speaking about those guys. Don't be thinking about anyone. I'm not speaking about anyone right here. But whenever a candidate like runs and adopts that attitude of, I'm not going to tell people what I really want to do, but then whenever I get in there, I'm going to do, you got to think, the thing that they're doing is they're like scared because it might cost them the election. Well, when they get in there, they're going to be scared that it might cost them re-election, or they're going to be scared that they're not going to get promoted to a different committee chair or something like that. And so that timidity during the election period, I think, is usually going to be seen during the actual legislative part, which we should actually kind of shift towards. Now we have Warren Hamilton. We have to call him the Senate-elect. He's the senator-elect. But barring some kind of, I don't know, what could happen that could keep him out or something like that, I don't think there's anything.
Recount?
They're going to
just be embarrassing.
There was like a video of some guy, and he had like a white hat, and he was kind of squatty, and he was like reaching in, he snuck in there with a bunch of ballots. I don't think there's going to be like 10,000 ballots that they find for the Democrat there, and but he's going to be there. Now, what do we expect from Warren? Warren's a good guy. Mm-hmm. He said at Abolition Day, he spoke from the stage at the Abolition Day rally this year. He said, I'm going to get in there and I will put forward a bill of total immediate abolition. I'll author the Abolition Act. Pretty much from day one, he's been running as the next Joseph Silk. Mm-hmm. Joseph Silk and the Silk family, the Silk Nation, has been involved in this campaign. There's not a doubt in my mind that a guy who runs as an abolitionist, associated with abolitionists, is going to get in there and file a bill of abolition. Yeah. That being said, I believe, and we have no evidence of this, okay? But at this point, he's won. So it is going to be pretty likely that all the people that worked very hard to keep him out of office, we're talking about Senate leadership, the establishment GOP folks that don't want a guy like Warren Hamilton in there because he's going to be another Silk and he's going to put forward this bill and it's going to make all our pro-life bills look like nonsense. They're going to have to begin the work of, okay, how do we deal with Warren Hamilton? What do we say to him? Can we get him to not put forward a bill? Mm-hmm. And so, by way of mentioning that, we already know that probably some of those wheels have begun turning. Mm-hmm. The moment that he beat Boggs,
Yeah, because it's important to note how many people were behind Boggs. I think we mentioned this in a previous episode.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was the congressman, Mark Wayne Mullen. It was both U.S. senators. It was the governor. It was like half the state senate. I mean,
and it's not like they're going to forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now it's going to be like that guy that we worked desperately, feverishly to keep out of that office is in that office. Mm-hmm. And so now their only options are, well, can we, now that he's in here, can we keep him from being an abolitionist? Can we call him up and say, well, congratulations, I think you're a pretty good guy, but maybe those Free the States guys are bad.
Yeah.
Can we divide? So like the enemy likes to do that divide and conquer thing. Like can we get you to sort of become more like us? And sadly, and I don't think this is going to happen for Warren Hamilton, but sadly that does happen to like you vote for a guy or a gal and she says she's going to go do these great things. And then you go in that first session, you say, well, you said you were going to file, a bill for constitutional carry or to protect the preborn. And why aren't you doing that? And they say, well, I've been talking to Senate leadership and they said that I should probably, learn the process, get a year under my belt, and then maybe file that later. And I've seen that happen to just tons of people that were, all other signs, good folks. And so that's probably happening to Warren. That'll probably be happening to John Jacob, and that's something to really be in constant prayer
They're trying
for.
to do that to Warren and John Jacob.
Yeah.
I don't think either of those guys, because of the strength,
to be clear,
which they ran as abolitionists, with which the connections that those, like we've known Warren, or you've known Warren for 2-3 years. I've known him for just about a year. But he is solid as it gets.
And he's seen the games.
And what they want to do, I think, when a new abolitionist gets in there, I think the thing they want to do, and the vibe that they always give off is sort of, they're the boss, you're sort of the employee type thing. You're coming into this work relationship wherein you've got to listen to the leadership, and then we can fight against the Democrats to get all of our Republican policies through. And that's sort of like that's the environment they want to set up.
Right.
But it's like, there's no fight against the Democrats here. There's no fighting that we're going to be doing at all. Really, the attitude that we have going into this is, we know what your guys' record has been. You have been killing abolition. You are the enemy. You are not friendly to what we are trying to do. And the idea that we're just going to be taking you in under Senate leadership, that's the kind of the thing they want to do and make him sort of a cog in their system.
Yep.
But the reason he was sent there by the voters in his district was to mess with their system.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are screwing up abolition. They're the ones that are shutting it down because they don't want abolition.
Yeah.
And the one other caveat we want to add here is that we would be absolutely overjoyed through the roof if this is not the case, right? So, so totally. I'm not going to say it's likely or anything, but what we pray for is that the guys up there in the state Senate are looking at this and saying, holy smokes. We hope they're not saying, holy smokes, he won. Let's see how we can, scheme to get him to not be an abolitionist.
Yeah.
We hope they say, oh my gosh, he won. Maybe this really is a movement. It's not going to go away. They're going to keep pressuring us to do the right thing. And maybe their conscience is speaking to them. Like, man, I thought I could just put this movement down if we just killed the bill.
Yeah.
And, we hope that the opposite of this is happening, that they're actually going to come around. They're going to repent. They're going to be swayed toward Warren Hamilton, that Warren Hamilton isn't going to be swayed toward them. We pray for that. We hope for that.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you've got to be prepared for the alternative that we spoke of earlier, because in all likelihood, I mean, it's just the more likely scenario.
They're at the end of the day, they're politicians, so they're always looking. I mean, they have principles and they have platforms, but they have to sort of see which way the wind's blowing, and that's what polls are. Yeah. You send out polls sometimes on issues to know whether you can go a certain distance on that issue, and it would be just fantastic, and there would be no bad blood. But if Greg Treat said, okay, man, Hamilton 72, he won massively.
Yeah.
And we did everything. Man, this is where it's going. In the event, I mean, if Treat comes along and wants to back a bill of abolition, if he's so Hamilton, if he calls him up instead of hey, you better not do that. You'll never have a committee, and I'll do every dirty trick I did against Joe Silk, I'm gonna do against you, or Joseph Silk. If he calls him up and does that, or something like that, that's terrible. But if he calls him up and says, listen, okay, here's the deal. Let's work this out. You're going to file this bill.
Yeah.
actually, I'd like to co-author it with you. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that is whenever we say, listen, we don't care if Treat's told 1,000 lies about us. We don't care if he's worked behind the scenes, unfruitful works of darkness from place to place, person to person, every manner of wicked thing about abolitionists. If he turns around and he says, you know what? Okay, given who's president, given the state of the Supreme Court, it's 2021. We've got an abolitionist here again. I filed a trigger bill back in the day saying if the Supreme Court allowed states, then Oklahoma would abolish abortion. Well, we've got the sprint. Let's do this. Mm-hmm. Come on, Hamilton. Let's do this. I mean, I would almost say like, well, Hamilton, you got to be a co-author of that bill, but
yeah,
let's let Treat be the champion, you know?
And there will be a time, I think, when it becomes so politically impossible for these guys to not do that. I don't know if it's, because I think that anyone who's looking at this right now and is seeing how much he won by, any of those guys that are sitting in the Senate looking how much he won by, and the fact that he was able to unseat Boggs with such a small budget compared to Boggs, they've got to think, if a candidate comes into my district, they're prepared, they've got a little bit of money compared to me, they can get me out really easily. Like, compared to the amount of effort that we have to expend to keep ourselves in, they don't have to do as much to get us out. And so I think any of them have to be looking at that and seriously thinking, this is something that is actually legitimately threatening my seat. Yeah. Which it should be if you're standing against abolition.
And they should, and things like this, again, it should be very instructive.
Yeah.
That thing that they said, and I know it on record that they said it to there were other people who ran who were supportive of abolition, but would not make that very clear.
Yeah.
And you say, well, why aren't you being louder about it? And they say, well, because my political advisors told me not to, that it'd be suicide. And so, and then of course they didn't, and maybe they didn't win. But I think that there will come a time, you're exactly right, where they go, it's political suicide to trash free the states. Mm-hmm. Like, we will know that we're doing our job well. Yeah. They think that being associated with free the states or having our endorsement or that we would talk well, they think that that's a detriment. Mm-hmm. But what they don't realize is that all the folks watching the show or reading our emails and so on and so forth, they literally are not going to support a candidate that we trash on programs like this.
Yeah.
And the sooner that the Senate gets that message and then says, you know what, we did our best, let's go with them. Mm-hmm. They will just find us their best friends. I mean, we can put up billboards against you or for you. and you think that us putting billboards against you doesn't have an effect, but the only people we've ever run billboards against aren't there anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's all Hamilton. It's we know a lot about the Hamilton race, and we talk more about Hamilton, but it is the same thing with John Jacob.
Yeah.
And the same sort of deal is going on there. They've had the Protection at Conception Act. Now, would this be the fourth year?
I think 17. They had it 1 year after Silk's first bill, right? Or was it 2 years?
It was right after, because Amy, I forget her name. Amy Schlichter called me right after 2016. She'd seen some stuff on Senate Bill 1118 with Joseph Silk, and I remember talking to her, and she was like, yeah, we're going to do a bill that doesn't regulate abortion.
This will be the fifth time then. 2021 will be the fifth.
Yeah, and that bill has actually been improved over time. Mm-hmm. And so one of the ways that John Jacobs' win is different is that he's coming in to be a co-author.
Yeah.
To joining a sitting. Curtin Isley will be in there.
Yeah.
And so he will be joining a sitting member of the House to co-author this bill. And we're hoping that the ground gained there among sort of the grassroots abolition. We know there's a abolitionist voting bloc in Oklahoma that's been being built over the past decade. Was really built up by Dan Fisher's campaign and built up by previous Senate Bill 13s. But there is a abolition voting bloc being built in Indiana, and we just hope that it's strong and that they're going to see a lot of the same things that we're able to talk about for Hamilton.
Every time I think about the John Jacob election, I smile because street preacher, he gets in there and he's like, as a street preacher preaching at these legislators, and 4 years later he's sitting among them, and then
I know.
all kinds of like little controversies for saying Orthodox Protestant doctrine about Islam and about Roman Catholicism. They come out in the press and they're like, John Jacobs needs to apologize. John Jacob, no, I'm not.
John Jacob thinks that homosexuality is a sin. He's like,
yeah, so
well, like 80% of these other people, I say that I believe the Bible, and I actually do. Yeah. No, it's not just like John Jacob as street preached. Yeah. It's like he in the Capitol, like calling them to repent.
Yeah. And I don't know how you can, as a Christian, not look at John Jacob being of the mindset of, we just need to be political pragmatists. We just need to say whatever the culture is saying. We just need to blend in long enough, be these chameleons until we can get in and get our policies through. I don't know how you can't look at John Jacob, see how he doesn't back down on this kind of thing, and not be so greatly encouraged and sure of the fact that that is the way you get a cultural change. When you have people that are being pressured to shut up, to change their mind, to apologize for what Christ has said is true, and them saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Because that's true. And so I was elected on this platform, deal with it.
And not realizing there's a lot of people, if you're running on that platform, there's a lot of people out there that it's refreshing. They want to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever Todd Bullis told me he was running for
Lieutenant governor.
He's running for lieutenant governor now in Texas, abolitionist in Texas, running for lieutenant governor. So he's running early. It's going to be a while. But when he threw in his hat in to be like the precinct chair of the Republican Party in his area. And I'm like, Todd, you're the guy who's known for like standing out in front of churches with signs of murdered image bearers. Everyone in your town, like if there weren't laws against murdering born people, you'd be dead. And you're running for the precinct chair. And he's just like, yeah. And I know Todd personally, and well, he's not going to downplay stuff. And he'll send me videos, and it's like him getting up and he's like, hi, I'm Todd. I'm running for precinct chair. I don't really care about the current governor and government stuff. We need to repent, and we need to honor God, and we need to love children. And it just goes on this whole thing, and he gets elected. And then he'll call me and be like, yeah, I go to these meetings and people, you're the guy that like stood out in front of my church. Is it true what you're saying about?
Yeah.
And it's like that's the conventional wisdom. Nobody who's ever stood anywhere holding a sign against abortion can win anything.
Yeah.
John Jacob has stood probably pretty much everywhere you can stand, including inside of the state capitol in Indiana, holding graphic images of murder.
Yeah.
Saying that they are in rebellion because of this. And he's going to be sitting in there in the office. Yeah, it should put a big smile in your
Yeah.
Your
it's because you have all of these sort of conservative, gatekeepers who are policing the way that Christians are supposed to behave. It's not really a left-wing thing per se. It's like you get these, big political pundits who are like, they're all these stuffed shirts that just want to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's the standard now. It's not what has Christ said, what must we say because we're following him. It's we want to look good and we want to score political points in everything. So you can't be a person who's out there holding an aborted baby sign saying that your hands, church, are bloody with these aborted babies because you are doing nothing about the slaughter. You can't be that person. You have to be somebody else.
Yeah. And I think that it's during normal times when you don't need to have some drastic paradigm shift in the political arena, such as what we advocate, shifting from pro-life establishment to outright abolition. During normal times, there is sort of we found a formula. This is what works. These are the words that you use. This is how you look, and do this so you can keep on winning.
Yeah.
But whenever that status quo formula ceases to answer the question, ceases to solve the problem, in our situation here, child sacrifice, when it ceases to work, you do have to change not just what you believe, but how you go about it. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, at some point in time, maybe 15 years ago, standing with a sign of a murdered baby might not have worked. But things have shifted, and now it's starting to work. Almost to where, you're running against a guy, but the guy you're running against would never be caught dead standing with a sign of a murdered image bearer. And people are like, well, I don't want to vote for that guy.
Yeah.
What a coward.
Yeah. Where are the images of him standing with a picture of an aborted image bearer?
Yeah, I'd go vote for him, but I have no evidence that he's ever been to an abortion clinic. So he probably doesn't actually love his preborn neighbors. It's shifting that way. And the lobbyists don't necessarily know that. We know that.
Well, I mean, that's you mentioned Trump earlier, but I think that was the secret to his success in a lot of ways. He filled a void where he wasn't saying as much as he should have been saying or actually doing things that were consistent with a Christian worldview in any way. But the things that he was saying there was a void there.
Yeah, nobody else was acting that way.
Yeah.
So you did have people that were much more respectable who were never Trumpers, and then all of a sudden they were pro-Trump.
Yeah.
And then when people are like, well, Trump's so uncouth, and they're like, well, he speaks his mind. So I think that just the tactic of, saying crazy things in the knowledge that lots of people believe those crazy things. And by saying, I don't think they're crazy. I don't think it's crazy that abortion's murder.
They're saying things.
But saying it according to the political experts, I remember we were building Dan Fisher's website, and we were kind of like, well, we're going to say abortion's murder. We're going to say that the churches haven't been guilty of being pro-life, but they've just been guilty of being Christian. We're going to put all that on there.
Of not being Christian?
Yeah, sorry. They've been guilty of not being Christian. The older and wiser the person was on the campaign, the more likely they were to be like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't
Wiser.
do that. Yeah. Wiser. Yes. I use all these words and they're like the opposite of what I'm saying. But the worldly the person who's sitting there going, we made a commercial, and it was going to be Dan Fisher arguing with a political lobbyist about whether or not to be an abolitionist. And the political lobbyist or consultant was going to be just call yourself pro-life, check that box and move on.
Yeah. We
showed that. We had the 10 or 15 people on the campaign. We emailed it, and they all watched it. And the older ones who had been in politics for a long time were like, there's no way that we're going to put this on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we cannot put this away. The younger people who had never been a part of politics were like, this is going to rock. People are going to watch this and be like, yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah.
And then they're like, don't do it. Dan Fisher calls me, sorry, Dan, if you ever watch this. He's like, I don't know if we should put this out. And I'm like, man, just trust me. He's like, okay. Put it out, and it's blows up, and everyone's liking it and sharing it. And then this kind of the older political wise person says, okay, maybe I don't know what's going on out there. It's it's changed.
I think that there is with the propaganda that you get from conservatives, there is a brainwashing effect that happens on them. One of the things that we saw from the death of the notorious RBG or RGB.
RBG. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I always do RGB because red, green, blue.
Yeah, such an artist.
Yeah. Well, so anyways, she dies. She's a horrible dictator type who is allowed for the murder of preborn babies. And I promise this relates to what we're talking about, but she is someone who probably, and this is what I was thinking at the time, I almost wanted to type it up and put it on Facebook, but it's in a just society, this type of person would be hanged because they are a murderer of preborn children, and they allow for the murder of preborn children.
Yeah, they're kind of like an angel of death type person. This is someone who's just presides over the destruction of lots of people.
Yeah.
In history, you have figures like that. You look back and you're like, well, this person may not have pulled the trigger, but they were the one that was lining people up.
Yeah, like Hitler, evil person. No one would disagree. That guy deserved the death penalty for what he did. Yeah. He killed 6 million Jewish people because he hated them. And so you have someone like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 62 million children killed since 1973. She continued that, and she fought for that to continue. And if you're thinking about that like a Christian, you're thinking this person not only, it's not just the fact that she died that I need to be I should be out there mourning or something like that if the political pundits are right or something like that. It's no, this person deserved to be killed for what she did.
I know where you're going.
In a just society.
Yeah.
And so it's in a world where we're being told not to say things that are Christian, we actually stop thinking like Christians.
Yeah.
Because we're being told we need to go out there and be public about how pious and mournful we are right now.
Yeah, so you get on Facebook and look at all the Christians and...
Yeah. It's I'm not saying that I'm not rejoicing over the fact that she's dead. I'm not happy if she went to hell. I would hope that she would repent and turn to Christ and become a Christian before she died. But... Right. The reality is she was a horrible dictator, and so our minds are being warped and changed because we're not willing to say what is true.
Yep. And so like people who maybe they'll say it like in their own houses.
Yeah.
She's a wicked woman, and I'm glad she's no longer there on the bench. Mm-hmm. But then on Facebook, they have this sort of thought, well, but on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever,
yeah,
I have to say, it was great that she, made it possible for women to be on the Supreme Court, or, I hope that her soul is in purgatory and converts or whatever, not even Catholic, but I think I'm supposed to say something like that. And then you put it out there. And then slowly but surely, I think, what you say ends up being what you believe because you fight for it.
Yeah, and these are pro-lifers who are supposed to know the fact that this is a Holocaust. They're supposed to know the fact that this is the mass murder of children, and they're out there saying this kind of garbage. And so it's like their minds are being warped and changed because they're not willing to say the truth.
Yep.
But the thing is, when the abolitionist movement comes on the scene, politics is changing now.
Yeah.
The way that we can get elected is completely changing because we're out there saying the truth. And it's changing the pro-lifers too.
Yeah, it resonates, and it starts to have that effect, not just on the opponents. Because I was talking to a pro-abort the other day, and they were basically just saying, you know what, I really watched this stuff, and I think it's really interesting because you're like saying the things that we thought that the pro-lifers believed, but now it's like, no, the pro-lifers don't believe this stuff because they oppose you. But like you're like exposing their hypocrisy, and it's really fun to watch them sort of attack you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, but do you also like who do you at the end really want to be in charge? They're like, oh, the pro-lifers for sure. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like it whenever I see some pro-lifer somewhere getting bold like an abolitionist. And so then that's what started this thing. It's like, oh man, I didn't think much about the abolitionist, but the other day I saw someone who hates y'all say that like there shouldn't be a rape exception. And I thought, I better email Russell and tell him I hate his guts. So, I think we are having that effect. And I would like to think it's because they're converting and their hearts and their minds are becoming more biblical. But really they look at it and they're like, okay, this abolitionist group says that the rape exception is murdering babies for the crimes of their fathers, and it gets 1,000 likes. And I post something like, well, we don't get in a tizzy. We got to have a rape exception, and it gets like 7 likes and a bunch of people saying I'm an apostate.
Yeah.
They go, okay, it's time to start saying that rape exceptions are bad. And that's the way this affects. So we started the episode out as Hamilton, Jacob, and we've spent a lot of time about what this ought to be telling you about the change that's occurring.
The political tactics that got them where they are.
The political tactics, the desire, I think, of the people to hear people being very clear what they believe and what they're going to do. And the more we do this, the more ground we gain, we're going to see it become easier and easier and easier. So the last thing I want to say about these campaigns is we get to celebrate Hamilton winning. We get to celebrate Jacob winning. But let's say they didn't win. Like, politically, they didn't have the political victory. They would have had the moral victory because of how they ran.
Yeah.
Because there would have been people coming alive going, finally, a Christian saying he's going to criminalize abortion as murder. That's consistent. And that gained ground. But thank God that things are changing. And not only did they win the moral victory, the victory for the abolitionist movement, the paradigm shift, but also they won the legal sort of position, and they will be now sitting in the state capitals in Indiana and Oklahoma.
Is the key to major cultural changes. The left has been paradigm pushing endlessly, and it's a changing paradigm forever. They have always been pushing it, and they've always been forcing a greater extreme on people, and then people have been adopting it because the new thing that we have to do to be normal is sort of accept their radical, ridiculous ideas and adopt it into our language so that we can politically make it with our people. It's like, no, we don't need to be doing that. We need to be pushing the paradigm back, going to what is biblical and true, and not be sticking up for this wickedness.
That's right. So let's see. James, you have anything you want to add about that? Anything else we want to cover on the Hamilton and Jacob wins?
Well, I think part of the thing that is really important too is just with Warren Hamilton, every single one of almost all of the leadership in the Senate and the governor, they have all thrown in with Boggs before this all happened. And so there is a big that's very important that he had all of the force behind him too. He had all of the Republicans, and looking into it, I think me and James were a little bit worried. Is like Boggs is endorsing Donathan. I think I was a little bit worried. Like, is that going to affect the way that any of this like plays out? And the reality is,
if Boggs were able to have moved it 5 points and it would have played out just like Boggs last time, Hamilton would have lost.
Yeah, it didn't affect him at all.
It probably helped him.
It might have helped him, because at that point, people had been so fed up with Boggs, like maybe they had just jumped ship from him entirely and went with Hamilton. But so I think that's important. The fact that all of the leadership was behind Boggs, and then Boggs was behind Donathan at the end. I think that is a big show of where the Senate leadership is on character, like how good they are at assessing whether or not someone is worth supporting. They knew Boggs for a long time. He was in there for a long time. They threw their support behind him, and here Boggs is endorsing a pro-abort.
Yeah.
And
I think it's probably a lot of what's going on there is the attempt to save face.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think that, there's when this starts to happen, the options for a guy like Boggs or Treat or McCourtney is, okay, I am on record for killing an abolition bill. Mm-hmm. I'm on record for trying to keep an abolitionist out of office.
Yeah.
When they start to lose, it's kind of like, well, I'm either going to go down in history as someone who's on record against them. And they won. So I need to still work to try to keep them losers. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, what we were seeing with Boggs. And like, well, I lost, and this is a referendum on the whole Senate and the GOP pro-life establishment. Well, let's save face. But there's also an opportunity for them to be like, well, it's time to change.
Yeah.
And so that's a good thing. We're going to reiterate it over and over and over again as we talk about moving forward, that yes, they have gone out of their way to try to stop abolition. But what happens when abolition becomes what the people want? Well, in a representative republic like ours, that's what they should give us. Yeah. And if they don't give it to us, they're going to lose their seats. So you're all on notice. Now, what are you on notice for? What do we have coming up? We've got the legislative session. It's going to be gearing up again in 2021, barring what happens in that other election. We're going to have either President Trump again, or we're going to have President Biden. But regardless of all that, Oklahoma State legislature is going to be meeting, and they're going to be, once again coming together to pass laws for the great state of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Abolitionists are going to be once again going to the Capitol. We were going to be going to the Capitol to call for abolition and demand a bill of abolition, regardless of whether Warren Hamilton won. But he won, so we are basically 99.99% sure that there's going to be a bill of total abolition, treating abortion as murder, seeking to criminalize it in the state of Oklahoma without exception, not incrementally, no regulations. And we're going to be going there to support it. So we are going to start exhausting you. We are going to be annoying to you by telling you February 9th. February 9th is Abolition Day. We will be rallying to the Capitol to support the Abolition of Abortion in Oklahoma Act, to give support to Warren Hamilton, to any of his co-authors, co-sponsors of the bill, and that we must show up. As we've said, the people in Hamilton and the people in Jacobs districts showed up to tell the establishment, no, we want abolition. When it comes down to abolition or pro-life, we want abolition. We must show up. It's not just about voting. It's actually more important that you show up at the State House and say, I am backing Hamilton. I am backing the bill to abolish abortion in Oklahoma. I am backing that, and only that. Let's do it, right? That's what they need to hear from you, because you might have got to vote for Warren Hamilton. You might not have. But you are able to vote for abolition again in the upcoming legislative session. So February 9th, big day. We will, through the Free the States email, I hope you're on our email list, Facebook page, or Twitter, Instagram, wherever, we are going to be constantly reminding you of this day, and also telling you when to start emailing the legislators. We'll probably get out some emails saying, hey, Hamilton's in there. We've got an abolitionist again. We invite you to get on board. I will be trying to reach out to the Treats, to Greg McCourtney, saying, hey, I know you've killed these bills in the past. Have you changed? Can we get support? Will you hear the next Senate Bill 13, the next Abolition Act? And so we're going to start doing that work, Free the States and other abolitionist organizations, and we need your help desperately. So we've got a bill, we've got a champion. Now we've got to let the rest of the state know about it. We've got to rally everybody. We got to get under every rock so there's not a single person in the state of Oklahoma that is unaware of this Abolition Act. And we got to get them to the Capitol, get them demanding it, unapologetically demanding it, and no longer fooled by the Oklahomans for Life, the pro-life establishment, and pro-life lobby. So we need your support. We need you to start getting activated. We're going to, for lack of a more peaceful term, we need to militarize you. We need to start, getting the troops together. We're going to tell you where to go, what to say, how to do it. And hopefully you will help us by building up our war chest. I hate these, I don't have any other analogies.
I don't mind them.
Yeah, we're going to war against child sacrifice in the state of Oklahoma. So we need to build that up. So we will begin raising money because, hopefully, Lord willing, we can start running radio ads, maybe TV ads, but lots of social media ads, letting people know Abolition Day, Abolition Act, time to support it. If Hamilton gets in there and he files the bill and no one shows up to support him, what was the point? This is a big win, but we've got to follow through. It's not over. William Lloyd Garrison, he very famously said that it's easy enough to understand that people would go and vote for an abolitionist, but the hard thing is getting them to be abolitionist on the daily.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to need you to do.
A very small part of your responsibility is voting. A lot of what you're doing. And the thing that a lot of legislators are going to take more notice of is the fact that you show up on Abolition Day, the fact that there's a gigantic crowd out there on a cold day. They're going to be paying sometimes even more attention to that than whether or not you're a small vote.
Yeah, because it can be just like a blip. Mm-hmm. I mean, as one of the legislators told me, it's like, well, if you guys make it so hard for us to use the bathroom, if there's so many abolitionists in the Capitol that we can't really go to the bathroom, we'll probably hear your bill.
Yeah,
that's how they see things. They need to see 10,000 abolitionists at the Capitol, and we can get that if people will get it in their minds that it does have a purpose, it does have a point, and we can actually push them in that direction. So we'll be raising money to try to get people to become aware of this and be there. You said stand in the cold. One of the things last year, we will say, we've already started thinking about this. We're not going to stand in the cold as long. We'll begin with a rally outside, have a big hurrah, have some presentations and stuff. It'll be shorter, but we'll be trying to get more people into the Capitol, talking to their senators, talking to their representatives, just being there in their faces in a very kind and peaceful way. They always lie about us and say we're really rude, but being there, actively engaging them on behalf of the abolition bill and against whatever sort of substitute charade.
By a lot of their definitions, we would be rude because we tell the truth about them on a podcast and all kinds of other places.
They think it's rude, but it doesn't matter how many times I say, listen, I'm just telling you, Greg, like you said you got into state politics to fight abortion. You said that you would want Oklahoma to criminalize abortion if the Supreme Court gave you permission. Now's the time. Yeah. Do it. Mm-hmm. Be who you said you want to be. Be who you ought to be, and we will support you. And let's make it really hard for them to say, well, we don't really care what three dudes in some office say somewhere. They will care if it's, 10,000 Oklahomans, because they already know that it's becoming politically costly to go against abolitionists. So that's what we've seen with Boggs, and that's what we've seen, in a number of ways and places.
Yeah.
So
We have a giveaway, a drawing for a drawing that we do.
We do.
Do we have another drawing that we're going to be
Yes.
announcing?
Now, this is a big one, okay? So we haven't talked much about this, but we do give away a drawing to people who support us, and it's becoming more and more important that you support us, not just so we can keep our lights on and continue to do shows, but also because we need to accrue money so we can support these bills and champions of the bills. But one of the things that we try to do, since we produce so much propaganda and since a lot of it's artistic, because that's what I do, we try to give away an original piece of art. Well, we're going to be coming out with a store soon. I know I talk about that all the time. And one of the things that abolitionists kind of do and have done a number of ways and shapes is drop cards, like little piece of paper places that people can pick up and learn about the cause and get involved. And one of the drop cards that we will be coming out with in the future will have this piece of art. Let me see, make sure we have that in the screen. And it says, crimes against humanity can never be legally binding. And it sort of goes from the slave trade to chattel slavery, which were also completely legal, protected by all three branches of government, and then also abortion, which is similar to slavery in that is a dehumanizing evil that's protected by unjust laws. This piece of art, this is a pen and ink drawing. It's original.
I really love this one.
There's no
really
misspellings.
Cool. No misspellings.
No misspellings, so it's not worth as much as the one we just gave away.
Handwritten typos.
There's no handwritten typos. Yeah, this, I don't know. I'll never be probably famous, but maybe this will be something that you would really, really want to have. And we will be giving it to one extremely lucky supporter of Free the States. So if you become a monthly member or donate a good amount to Free the States, really, we put your name. Where's that bucket? Oh, yeah. Here it is.
There it is.
We put your name in this here little bowl, and we will draw a name in 3 episodes from now.
Yep. It could be your name, and you could win this.
Yep. Turn around and send it to you. Now,
I might put like a bunch of my name in there so I can win this.
Yeah, it's going to be like.
Let me draw that one, okay?
Sam Riley. What? That's all Sam. It will not all be Sam Riley. He could literally come in here in the middle of the night and steal it, but he's not going to.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I love that piece, and I'm hoping that it goes to a good home. But, I'm very thankful for everyone who supports the work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so become a member of Free the States. Keep watching these shows. Keep sharing them. People who aren't watching this, what we're saying today is very important, that people start to understand that it is shifting towards abolition. We're seeing it. One of the ways that you see that the culture is shifting is, does it have an effect on politics? It's having an effect on politics, and that is being demonstrated with victories like Hamilton and Jacob. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And we will be back every Thursday night and sometimes in between.
Yep.
To the Liberator podcast. So like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.